update the editor-in-chief's name. So just don't leave it alone, so that the editors of a journal will see that the cover letter was actually addressed to the editor-in-chief of another journal. And of course, cover letter is a very useful space for authors to explain to editors the purpose of the study and the importance of this the work. And it also needs to summarize the scientific advances of the reported results, and why the manuscript is specifically suitable for the journal is submitted to. So here, because the cover letter is more like a private correspondence between authors and the editorial office, because the cover letter will not be published. So here you can really just use plain language to try to persuade the editors. And also in cover letter, you can suggest referees who are relevant and experts in the field. And of course, you can also exclude referees that you feel of potential conflicts of interest. This is an example of a very, let's say, standard but really boring cover letter. It basically has no useful information here, and the title is not attractive either. So fantastic synthesis of really interesting compounds tells you nothing specific about the work, and there's no useful information here. And of course, here is a really bad example. The authors basically submitted to Nature Communications before submitting to Angewandte, but again, here they did a very sloppy job, forgetting changing the journal title at the very end. Here is a really good cover letter. Basically, here we report a series of potent anti-cancer agents with novel pharmacophore that were synthesized in very efficient three-step route. So basically here, using these adjectives, potent, novel, efficient, the authors successfully highlighted the importance of the work and the novelty, the advances of the work. And also, this is the first report of selective targeting, so including a first also made it very impressive. And after the initial evaluation, editors will need to go on and make initial decision based on that to basically decide whether to directly reject the manuscript or to send it out for peer review. So basically for direct rejection, we will also combine that with a transfer offer to a journal that we feel more suitable for the work. Of course, there are cases, manuscript rejected on formats, and we re-invited the authors to submit a properly formatted manuscript to us. So here are the common reasons for rejections without peer review. It could be that work is out of scope. For example, if a work focuses too much on the physics side of a compound or of a system, it might be more suitable for a physics journal. And the level of advances, if only incremental advances were reported, we don't consider that important enough for our journal. And this could be strongly based on previous work. And of course, if a manuscript involves unethical behavior, such as plagiarism, basically the large amount of reuse of previous published papers. For example, this also could be data fabrication or falsification. And of course, for us, as a journal that still has strict requirements for article types. If you send us the wrong article type, we will not further consider it. And other examples, for example, if figures are not legible, it's not the resolution is not high enough. It's basically very difficult for one to recognize what the figures are about. Then this is very sloppy work and will not be considered. And once a manuscript passes the initial appraisal stage, it will go into the peer review part. And peer review is basically the center of research publication. It's the evaluation work by one or more people of similar competence to the producers of the work, which is another peer. Peer review basically deals with the suitability for publication. Reviewers need to judge whether the work is true, credible, whether it's reproducible, as the result important, the conclusion is relevant, and whether overall work is communicated effectively. And of course, the novelty of the reported results. Of course, after peer review, a manuscript may be given a chance to revise or may be rejected. But either way, research peer review will help authors improve their research, right? It basically gives the authors another perspective to look at these results, and also from a reader's perspective to improve the reasoning of the work, the presentation, and it could also give authors additional ideas on or around the current results. There are different types of peer reviews, and the most common one, and also the one we use, is the single blind mode, which basically means that authors are known to reviewers, but reviewers are not known to authors. There are, of course, other types of peer review processes, such as double-blind peer reviews, in which process that authors are unknown to reviewers and reviewers also unknown to authors. And of course, there are non-blind peer review, which basically means that reviewers are also known to authors. Of course, publishers and journals are also experimenting with really innovative ways for peer review. For example, the open peer review mode, which basically means papers, even after its publication online, is open for public refereeing. And for editors, when we choose referees, we we have a huge referee database for us to choose from, and we also use our own experience in the background to select referees. And in this case, previous experience with the referees by a single editor would be quite important, because we would know the quality of their reports, the reliability of this referee, and how fast they can do review report for us. And of course, we look at author we look for referees from the manuscript itself. We look into similar studies, basic work cited in the manuscript, those published on the same topic in the same journal, and we heavily rely on online databases such as Web of Science to do literature search to find relevant and suitable referees. We also consider the suggested referees by the authors, and of course, when we invite a referee, for some reason the referee will not be able to review for us. We also ask the referee to suggest alternative referees for us. And the authors who are often at the same time referees really help journals to do quality control of the published contents, and therefore they have responsibilities to to basically guarantee a smooth peer review process as well. And reviewers are required to treat the manuscript as confidential. And we as editors will be informed. We need to be informed if a referee consults a colleague about the manuscript. Of course, referees are expected to judge the manuscript objectively and in a timely fashion. And if there is a conflict of interest, for example, if the referee previously has published with the authors or collaborates with the authors, they need to return the manuscript without review to the editorial office. And we also ask referees to explain and support their judgments and to provide reference to published work. And of course, when they notice plagiarized materials or falsified data, they need to alert the editor. And here are the questions for reviewers to consider. So basically, what question does the paper answer, which means what their hypothesis is, and what is the unique finding in a work. Next is evidence. Are the conclusions supported by their data? And is their presentation clear enough? So basically, are the results clear and understandable? Are the results set in the context of other known research? Basically, which means that has the authors done necessary citations to previous work and acknowledge the previous known results? And also, does the paper adhere to the guidelines, in particular the ethical guidelines? So referee interacts with the editors, with the editorial office, mainly through their referee report. And to write a really good report, we want reviewers to give us constructive criticism, and they would need to identify both the strength and the weakness of the work. They need to, when they talk about the good or the bad part of the work, they need to be very specific. They also need to check the references and the supporting information to see if the citation and the supporting data are sufficient. Of course, we also want the reviewer to include potential ethical problems in their review report. And for authors, how to rate a report is quite important for them to improve the work. So they shouldn't just change it. They shouldn't just treat the review report as something that's a final order or something like that. They need to treat it as a discussion of the paper, and they shouldn't take the review report personally. Authors need to basically inward look and be self-critical. Of course, editors and authors often read review reports differently because of the different perspective. They interpret review report also differently. So once the editorial's office collects enough review reports, they will be ready to move on for rejection. Sorry, for a decision. And if there's not enough support from the reviewers, a manuscript will be rejected at this stage. But this is also an opportunity for authors to improve the work. And you really want to take this good opportunity and make necessary changes, because if you don't change the paper and if you send it to another journal, it may be sent to the same referees by the next journal, and you're likely to get the same or similar comments even from different reviewers. And readers may come to the same conclusions as the referees. So don't just leave the rejection review report as they are, do the changes. And at YD for us, we have a portfolio of chemistry journals, and we also have this what we call the transfer pyramid. At the top is our flagship journal, Angewandte, and for papers rejected from Angewandte, you have the options to transfer to chemistry European journal, chemistry Asia journal, our specialized sister journals, open chemistry open, and at the bottom we also have chemistry select. So in the year of 2017, about 1,150 manuscripts were transferred from Angewandte Chemie to one of the sister journals here. And of course, there are cases where authors feel that rejection is not fair, and they also have the opportunity to do rebuttal. So in this case, authors will need to prepare detailed response to the editor, addressing every single comment of the referees, and all of their claims should be substantiated by data or references. And during the process of rebuttal, authors should not be emotional. Like I previously mentioned, the review reports shouldn't be taken personally, so authors shouldn't be emotional when dealing with rejected manuscripts. And of course, you don't want to react immediately once you receive the manuscript. Just give it a day or two to think about it and to really prepare your rebuttal before sending it. Of course, for manuscripts with positive reviewer feedback, and once after the authors have successfully addressed all the concerns from the reviewers, manuscript will be ready for acceptance. In this case, revision will be quite important. We expect authors to take time to respond to all comments, and it could really save for their peer review. And of course, authors do not necessarily have to agree with all the comments raised by reviewers. And if authors disagree with the comment, they need to explain why and still consider revising the article in some way to clarify the argument. In our case, we want the authors to respond to all the comments in the response to referees box, so it could facilitate the peer review process. For readers, for editors and reviewers' convenience, if they could highlight the changes made in the manuscript, it'll be a lot easier for us to identify which parts were changed. Also, if you realize that there are relevant data you could add or relevant discussions that could be made, don't just limit your changes to those things specifically mentioned. And when doing so, you should also, as an author, remember that reviewers are also readers. So their suggestions could also be expectations from readers. And of course, in the end, the revised manuscript and the response to referees may be sent back to the same referees. After acceptance, we will ask authors to basically do a lot of standard procedures. This includes submission of final electronic files and we also launched the accepted article workflow, which basically means that when the final files are submitted to us, the articles will be posted online as soon as they can. And next involves a lot of coding, editing, typesetting, get-approving things. And when the get-approved are ready, they will be sent to authors for corrections. And once these are done, the manuscript can move to the early view stage, which basically means that they are officially published online with DOIs and other things. And next, they will be officially published in an issue and printed, of course, in the issue. Going back to referees, when interacting with referees, we also have some quite interesting experience because there are increasing more and more submissions to us, and there are also reviewers that contribute a lot to us, but they are also human beings, so they will also need a break. And these are some of the feedback we receive from reviewers. So this could be basically another perspective for us to know reviewers on life. So, for example, we have this from a reviewer who just had a new baby in his or her family. So since my son was born 2 days ago, I will not be able to meet this deadline. And some of the reviewers are really honest and frank with us. Sorry, I'm late. My friends tell me that I'm late. They are probably right. And third one, basically a referee who has gone on ski vacation. I'm on holidays, and this manuscript doesn't seem to be as exciting as skiing. And of course, not able to review as I'm currently on vacation and do not want to consider divorce in the near future. So this review really faces some family pressure. And in the end, of course, everyone's human, which basically means reviewers and editors are both humans. So from the author's perspective, just interact with them in a normal human way. And I believe that's the end of the presentation. I will be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you very much.
Much, Dr. Su, insightful information.
Great. Thanks, Dot. I just stopped sharing my screen, and thanks, Dot. Yep. Like I said, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Before we open to the questions, I would like to invite Dr. Juan Junqing to represent Institute of Kimia, Malaysia, to give a closing remark. Dr. Juan.
Okay. Thanks, Dr. Chi.
Hi, Dr. Su. Hi, Dr. Su. Can you hear me?
Hi, Dr. Juan. Yep.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. Very fantastic talk about on the submission to Angewandte Chemie. To us, it's a very high impact journals that all the chemists are trying to submit the journal. I think you are receiving a lot of manuscripts per day, I presume, right? So again, thanks for your sharings. As a Institute of Kimia, Malaysia, and also Universiti Malaya, I would like to thank you for your time, your precious time. I think the other audience can take this opportunity, right, to ask the questions so that we can have more communications. For example, what Angewandte expect, right? So I think some of our audience here might submit to Angewandte, but unfortunately have been rejected without going for peer review processes. Okay, so it's an opportunity, right, to ask Su, what is going on? What happened to your paper? Is it not enough novelty? Is it something that your grammar issue or something else? Yeah, Dr. Su, we also have prepared your certificates. We'll send to you after this seminar or webinar.
Great.
Okay, great.
Thanks a lot, Professor Juan.
Yeah, awesome. So I pass back to Dr. Chi for the Q&A sessions. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. John. Now open to the floor if you have questions to Dr. Su.
Perhaps I can start asking. Dr. Su, so thanks for your talk. That's very informative. Questions about the journal, the topics that would suit the journals. I know different journals, they have a preferred, some sort of a list of preferred topics, say in the coming, I don't know, 3 years, 5 years, that sort of stuff. I mean, they sort of anticipate what would be the important fields within the community. Now, for Angewandte Chemie, is there such a list like that you would like to share with us? What are the important topics, say, in the coming 5 years or so, that would be considered as priority in Angewandte?
Okay, thanks for your question. I think that that's really a quite common question we get from our authors and readers. But unfortunately, I have to say that we don't really have such a list because we are a large volume and general chemistry journals, which means that the journal covers all aspects and all topics in chemistry and also relevant field. So that we don't really, I guess on the one hand that we are really not after hot topics, just because of they receive more attention and they can generate more citations. And on the other hand, we don't really, let's say, we will still consider papers from topics that not so many people work on, but because they are still an important part of chemistry, and the advances in this field also make important contribution to the overall growth and overall development of chemistry. But what I can tell you is basically my observation from my experience as an editor. Basically, there are more and more papers focusing on interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary research, which means that the more and more exciting papers, they are not only focusing on 1 or 2 topics. They could be at the interface of 1 or 2 traditional topics, and they generate more exciting results at this intersecting point, and basically could potentially move the field ahead by not contributing to one specific topic, but to several different topics. So the short answer, unfortunately, I have to say, is no, we don't have such a list. But then we really would like to encourage authors to explore new and emerging topics out of the traditional topics.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Su. There is a question from the chat box.
Yeah,
what happened if there is a big disparity between the reviewers? Does the editor step in to make a decision?
Yeah, that's really a good question, and it's also a situation we see a lot during our daily work. So basically, at Angewandte, we can make quite straightforward decisions based on 2 consistent review reports, either being both positive or both negative. And in the case where we have a situation of conflicting reports, which basically means we have 1 positive and one negative. We first would examine the negative report to see why the reviewer was negative. So basically means, is this because there is significant or serious scientific flaw with the work? If that's the case, we probably need to move on with the rejection just because the science is not sound enough. And if the situation is more of a conflict in terms of different views of novelty or importance of the reported results, then we will likely move on and invite a third adjudicating reviewer. And in this case, we tend to go, say, with a more senior established reviewer in the field to basically get his or her opinion on the importance or significance of the work.
Thank you, Dr. Su. You have already answered the second question raised by Tyrus Tai. Yeah. Is there any more question from the floor to Dr. Su regarding anything, publication in these reputed journals?
Hi, Dr. Su. John here. I just wonder, right, when you receive a manuscript, how you decide whether this type of work is worth to be a review, or you straight away make a decision to reject the paper? What type of the novelty, right? Of course, if it's very novel, we'll send to Nature, right? For example. Yeah. Of course, right? Come back to reality. If then, what type of novelty level that you are looking at? Is it like from, when we write a paper, of course, there are certain level of novelty. How you judge the novelty is acceptable to be sent for reviewing process, at least. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Professor Chen, for the question. Again, that is also a very common question we receive. I think in this case, we usually base our decision on our own experience, basically our familiarity with the topic and where the field is currently at. And of course, we base our decision on our own research of literature, not our own research in the lab, but our own research of literature. So when receiving a manuscript, we will basically look through the references, especially those relevant references on the same topic, and to get a feeling where we can position the current work at. And we also use Web of Science or sometimes Google Scholar to find most recent publications on this topic. And we would usually go and compare basically the concept proposed in the paper and the findings, the various characterization techniques or theoretical techniques used in the work. And so basically, the more relevant papers we compare the current work with, the more precise, I guess, we can position this work in a coordinate in terms of, let's say, importance and significance and novelty. Sorry. And we basically establish such a coordinate using existing papers, right?
Dr. Su. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Su, for the answer. Open to the floor if you have questions to Dr. Su. Well, We have almost come to the end of this webinar. If you have further questions regarding the topic today, of course, you can email to Dr. Su. Please join me to thank Dr. Su for his very insightful information and webinar today. Please.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Chi, and thanks again to Professor Juan, to Dr. Chi, and to everyone who just spent an hour also with me. It's a great pleasure. And again, as Dr. Chi mentioned, feel free to get in touch with me if you have any question during your future submission or publication process. Thanks again.
Yeah. Before I call to an end, can I ask everyone to turn on your camera so that we can take a photo together with the speaker today? Thank you. All right. So I need to take a screenshot for a few times. Let's just smile for a while. This is the second page. And this is the third page. Okay, thank you everyone for your kind participation to this wonderful event. Thank you, Dr. Su, for your presentation. And that's it. This is the end of the webinar. If you have further questions to Dr. Su, you're welcome to email to him. Yep. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Good.
Bye.